The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? In a super-duper-sized episode, Amber and Scott discuss a dystopian society in The Assessment where a couple desperately wants what our hosts desperately don't want, a baby. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
I know going to you, this is a rhetorical question, but how bad do you want a child?
Not that bad.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
This episode, folks, we are talking about The Assessment. In a not-so-distant future where resources are scarce and tightly controlled, even the dream of having a child is not a given. A baby is no longer a decision, it's a privilege. Couples who want to be parents must pass a shadowy and mysterious test to prove that they are worthy. Normally, we get 1, 2... what would you do's out of a film, maybe on a really good film, maybe 2 or 3. This one easily has 52 what would you do's.
Buckle up, boys and girls. We're going to be here for a while.
Wow. So many freaking scenarios about what would you do. This was like a movie version of a Black Mirror episode.
Yes, which is probably why I enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, you do like your Black Mirror.
Okay, so I want to start with the greatest overarching what would you do to begin with.
Okay.
So you're living in this dystopian society where you are taking some drug which completely stops you from aging.
Yep,
Like,
on the daily, you don't get sick, you don't age. You
do
are.
they say you don't get sick?
I believe she said, Minnie Driver's character said you don't get diseases.
Maybe. Okay. Either way, like one of the characters said that they were like 154 years old.
Yeah.
And didn't look a day over 143. No,
That was Minnie Driver, yeah.
yeah. And so because of this, people don't die. I mean, maybe every once in a while in some freak accident, but for the most part, like people don't just die off.
Well, and let's be clear on this out of the gate. So this is the world that our main characters live in, and they have fresh air, they have water, they have resources to be able to grow food. It's a harder life than we have now. They have to work for what they have, but they can still have those things. However, there is also a place called the Old World,
Which seems to be outside the dome.
yeah, which is a life where there are storms and depleted soil, so there's not enough food and bad air quality, and it's basically where our planet is headed if we don't take care of it.
So that said, one of the reasons that people have kids is to propagate the species. Like, people die, you need to replace them with new people.
I don't think that's how most couples think that, oh, we need to propagate the
Well, they don't
species.
think about that,
They
but
were like, we want to start a family, we want to be a mom and a dad,
But-
we want to take care of kids.
yes, but partially because that's what you do. Like, that's what a lot of people do. Now enter a society where you don't need to do that. As a matter of fact, not only do you not need to do that, the bar to do that is really high.
Yeah, because they have people who don't age, so therefore they're not dying off. And if no one's dying off, there aren't ebbs and flows with the needs and usage of resources. And because that population is fairly stable, to introduce a child obviously adds to the population, which strains the resources to keep the air clean and the water clean and yada, yada.
Yeah, and it also stresses oddball resources, things like baby food,
Yeah,
which you
not a
generally
lot of demand for that.
generally don't need, or even on the other side of things like adult diapers.
Yeah.
People aren't getting old; they're not pissing themselves.
Yeah, the Depends business
intentionally.
went out of business
Or
in
unintentionally.
this
Yes.
environment.
So, do you even, assuming that you're not us, because even for free, we're not replicating. If you're a normal couple, like, do you want to have a child in that society? Because as Minnie Driver's character put it, they probably need fewer people, not more.
I think, and this is speculative on my part because I don't have kids, I think most people want to be a parent. I think most women want to be a mom, and I think a lot of men want to be a dad. And I think if circumstances were such that they were in the film, I think a lot of people would be applying to be given a child because I think most people want to build a family. You and I are just the anomaly.
But how much do you need to do that in this environment? Like,
Because you can't be a parent. It has nothing to do with procreating to keep the species going. I think it's because people genuinely want to start a family. They want to build something with their partner, and families are how you do it. And maternal instincts and paternal instincts are a thing. More so maternal, but
I mean, I could see as this thing goes on, like, I don't know, there's a family reunion or something, and somebody's like, hey, I want to introduce you to someone. Hey, this is my great grandmother.
yeah.
Bernice.
Yeah. Well, and that's assuming that there was that many people preserved on that. I don't think it probably went that many generations back because
it could go that many generations forward.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, you go to the old world, you bang one out, you come back.
Yeah, because in the old world, you can have children. Now, granted, it is a messed up, depleted environment that you probably should not be bringing a child into, but you are allowed to do that. In this,
Well, you also have no access to the drug that keeps you alive.
yeah,
Because that drug, while it keeps you alive, also basically effectively sterilizes you.
well, it's not you're not legally allowed to procreate.
Yeah, but I mean, they said though that the drug basically will sterilize you. Like, you can't on it. To procreate, you would have to stop taking it, then have the child, and then attempt to go back on it.
Yeah, and then of course they would know what you did and probably expel you to the old world anyway.
Yes, anyway.
So many. What would you do here? Where do you want to start? I know you have a lot of opinions.
Yeah. So even though we haven't really gotten to this, the point of the assessment is that if you want to be a candidate for this.
So basically so let's just set it up really quickly here. So if you want a child, you have to apply to the government for an assessment. And if you are actually granted an in-person interview, an assessor comes, and it's a very mysterious process that no one understands. And this assessor lives with you for 7 days, and you don't know what's going to happen. And over those 7 days, once we see what happens to our couple here, wow, it is a journey of chaos and stress as the assessor not only pretends to be a child with temper tantrums and throwing food, she also tries to sex up the potential dad.
So here's the thing. The assessor, who is the person who is going to judge you, and you basically kind of have to, I don't know, cow down to.
Because her decision is final.
Also, periodically, turns into a little toddler and acts as though a toddler would. And you don't necessarily know which version you're dealing with.
Yeah, she comes out that first morning and kind of slumps down on the table and then starts just huffing and puffing and then kind of throws food at them. And then they're like, oh, okay, I guess she's testing us to see how we would parent. And she goes on over the course of the 7 days to create all kinds of chaos and tests, burning down the lab/greenhouse of the woman, Mia, and almost drowning herself because they took their eyes off of her. And
Yeah, let's go a little more day by day on this one.
okay, go.
So the first day, you're getting everyone settled. She doesn't like her bed. There's a loose spring, even though apparently there's no actual springs
In the bed.
in the bed. Just as basically like an initial
Test. How far were
initial
you
test,
been?
what are you going to do? So they were like, okay, we'll sleep in here. You can have the big one, and
Our bedroom. You can have our bedroom.
somehow on the little twin bed, they decided it might be a good location to get freaky, and she knees him in the balls, and then uses one of the better lines I've heard in a movie in a while. Are you going to complain, or are you going to put your dick in my mouth?
Do you want my dick in your
Or
mouth?
do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want your dick in my mouth? Whatever. By the way, the correct answer is dick in the mouth. I'm just gonna say it's always dick in the mouth. So she's blowing him.
Sorry, folks. Adult content here.
Yeah. And Victoria
Who is the assessor?
is watching.
Yes, because she says, I want to see how you interact with one another. So she is creepy by the door watching them. And then Aryan sees her standing there, and she says, I want to see how you interact. Go ahead as you were. And they are very uncomfortable. But they resume doing what they were doing because they feel like they need to, because she's there to assess them.
Yeah, reality show directors were looking at this and going, man, that's a little too invasive.
Yeah, it was, and granted, nobody knows what this process is.
Yeah,
so,
like you don't know.
so anything that comes up, they're like, is this part of the assessment, or what is happening here? But they do their best to adjust and go along as throughout the film. They're like, what the heck is happening here? Is this her? Is she Victoria? Is she a child? What's going on? And they're just always on their toes trying to adapt to what's happening.
Yeah. So we move into day 2. And again, she comes to the kitchen table and she's just a child.
Victoria, yeah.
Like, she in no way, shape, or form seems like an assessor. And she won't eat. And they try to make her eat. And she flings her food.
And they try and pretend it's a plane and get her to open up, or a train, or whatever.
Yeah. Parents kind of lose their cool a little bit because
She threw food in his eye.
yeah, Aryan got it thrown in his eye, and it kind of messed with his eye. And then while they were taking care of that, she absolutely trashes the house. Just trashes it.
Yeah. She's a little hellion.
Yeah.
That would make me not want to have a baby just dealing with the assessor pretending to be a child.
So right now, what do you do? Because I mean, I guess you can always end the assessment anytime you want.
Yeah.
If you want to just say,
But if you get this actual in-person thing, which is a rarity, and you think you get a baby, you suck it up because
you're willing to
you
put-
made it this far. You're so close.
yeah, you're willing to put up with some stuff. So, like, okay, so about the time she's acting like a toddler, like, do you tap out?
No, I think you go with the flow. What would you do? I think at that point you're like, okay, so this is it. She's going to pretend to be a kid and test our parenting skills. And I guess this is just something we have to deal with and play along with for 7 days.
Yeah, by the way, and that's going to be a question I'm going to ask a lot. Would you tap out?
Yeah. And it's 7 days of this, and you don't know what each day holds.
Yeah, you
And each day does hold a new twist.
yeah, it does, because they're doing all sorts of things for a while, and eventually Victoria's like, test over, and then walks away like she's the full-on assessor again. Which I've got to get this out at this point, because at some point I have to say it. If they're trying to assess their parenting skills based on how Victoria acts,
Right.
Victoria is significantly larger than a child.
She's a small woman, but yes, larger than a child.
She has significantly more brain power to be able to devise these strategies. Like, a toddler is going to cause random chaos, but they're not going to know the ways. Like, they're going to cause chaos because they don't know what they're doing.
But what she was doing are things that any kid would do. Not eat, raising a fuss,
Yes.
yelling, repeating. Because with the episode with the food, Mia says, fuck, and Aryan says shit or something. And then she starts saying as a kid, fuck, shit, fuck. So the things she did are things a kid would actually do is
Some of it.
I don't know.
I mean, we'll get to more as we go along. So, and if I end up getting some of these days wrong, I am sorry. We tried to remember what was on each day. I've got day 3 as the dinner party, where they get an invite to a dinner party, and they realize the invite is at their own home.
That they are the hosts of
Yes.
this dinner party.
So the people who were brought were some of the people that were going to make them the most uncomfortable.
Right. So we have Arian's former girlfriend, wife, something or another, where it's divulged that they tried to go through this assessment process once. We have someone who Mia worked for when she was a research assistant, and he was a professor, and turns out he had an affair with her, and she actually is thinking that, in hindsight, that was probably abuse of power. We have Arian's mom who comes in, who apparently will say or do things to embarrass him or create problems, which ultimately, ... she does.
Which I'd like to note in that scene, that I don't remember the actress's name who plays Victoria, but she...
Elizabeth Olsen.
Oh, Elizabeth Olsen, yes. Oh, yeah, I should have known that. She wins the Emma Stone Oscar.
No, that wasn't Mia. That was Victoria.
Victoria. I said whoever plays Victoria. Who plays Victoria?
Okay. I don't know.
Okay. The person who plays Victoria wins.
Oh, Alicia Vikander.
Yes.
Vikander.
Yeah, she gets the Emma Stone Memorial Oscar because apparently if you act like a child and piss on something or someone, you win an Oscar.
Yeah, don't even bring up. What was that?
I don't know.
What things? Pretty things? No. What is it?
I really tried to block out
Messed up
that
things,
movie.
Things, bad movie things.
Yeah, but I have to admit I was kind of okay with her pissing on.
You could see it coming. When you heard the sound, you're like, uh-oh. Uh-oh.
But it was there designed to cause chaos. And, it did.
Yeah.
And then, so, it's day 3. You're going through all that. This is now showing that they're going to bring things into this...
Poor things.
That they're going to bring things into this assessment, which is going to actively...
Create conflict.
Cause conflict in your relationship.
Yeah. Because all the things were divulged during the dinner party. Arian, the husband, did not know about her affair with the professor, which wasn't that big of a deal, but it was a huge deal when Mia found out that Arian had tried to have a child with his ex and had not told her that.
Okay, all of that. Do you tap out?
I mean, I certainly can understand how Mia was like, we're going through this whole process. It's a huge deal in this particular environment that the movie is set.
I mean, I think they said you had to be like in the top 0.01%
to get an
in-person to even get that far.
Yeah. So I think Arian not mentioning that he had gone through, at least started this process with someone else, it seemed like that should have been brought up at some point, but he was like, I haven't told you everything that happened before I met you. I'm like, okay, yeah. But if you're literally going through one of the biggest things that can happen in this new world, this new environment, I do think him not saying something, like, why the heck wouldn't you say something? Like,
he probably should have. I mean,
so
she did this.
And
even in night one, they did establish that she was a little on the jealous side. Like, because she told Arian, like, I think she likes you. He goes, are you jealous? She's like, ashamedly so, yes. So.
I mean, I think it's not even a matter so much of what did or didn't happen. It's that when you find out someone hasn't disclosed information to you, that they have kept it private. It's not even so much the act of what happened. It's the fact that someone didn't tell you and that they chose to keep that information private. So I think that escalates it.
Well, so that's the weird thing about lying by omission. Sometimes lying by omission isn't lying by omission. It's, I just didn't think to tell you this. Now, admittedly, I actually agree with your point that this being such a huge thing, if you've even made it to this point with somebody else.
Yeah.
Then
I don't think they made it to this point. I think they had started the process. I got the impression.
Well, it said the previous ones tapped out at the questionnaire.
Yeah.
So
they did not get to the in-person assessment. But yeah, I think that was a mistake. And obviously when Arian's mom brought this up and says, "Oh, did Mia not know?" I didn't know she didn't know. And then there's all this conflict. And the part that you're talking about Victoria peeing is she sat on one of the dinner guests' lap as she was telling a story. And then Victoria, the grown woman who's pretending to be a child, pees on her. Let me repeat, pees on her. So obviously the woman freaks out that this baby woman peed on her, hits her, throws her off, hits the ground, and now Mia and Aryan have to spring into I'm mommy and daddy and go and comfort this assessor who urinated on one of the dinner guests. Be like, oh, sweetie, are you okay? It's all right. Mama says it's okay. It messed up.
And see, and that's the thing too. It is, I get the role play part of it, but like if you're actually say dealing with a toddler or a baby who you know truly doesn't know better, you're going to try to comfort that person because that's what they absolutely need. If you're a government worker assessor who decides to piss on people and you know better and you're just doing this to cause chaos, like you might not be as quick to be like, there, dear, it's
but
okay.
The whole point is that these are things that kids actually do. So on one hand, it makes sense that you'd want to see how someone would actually react to these real world things that happen with children. But obviously, it's extremely messed up. And as we go through this process and we're put into more and more of these situations, even weirder things come up and this is where it gets messed up, that a child would not do. For example, when Mia is comforting Victoria one night when she's going to bed, and she kind of just strokes her hair and says, have a good night, sweetie, and kisses her on the forehead. Victoria tries to kiss her on the mouth. So then you're like, okay, what the heck is that about? Is that a test? Or is she trying to do something? What the heck is that about?
Yeah, so
what would you do?
That's exceptionally screwed up because you're right. See, that's the thing is that you at any point don't know if you're dealing with Victoria the child or Victoria the assessor.
Yeah.
So on to day 4, I'm trying to remember. Again, it's a movie.
Another day.
They went down to the ocean.
I think that was before. I think that was like day 2 or something. But it doesn't matter. Another day, another test.
Well, they play Stonefish, where she runs away and is face down in the ocean, like she's drowned because she ran away, and the parents find her, and then she's pissed that I was playing Stonefish. I was fine, even though it looked like she had drowned.
Oh, I thought she said starfish. But yeah, she disappeared while they were building sandcastles. And of course, the test of your parents, you look away for a second and your kid's gone. And they find her shoes in the ocean because they're at the beach. And then sure enough, she's face down in this little alcove here. And yeah, obviously they're frightened. And it turns into a whole big deal. And at that point, they're going back home. And Victoria, it's like, I want daddy to carry me. So she's a grown woman.
Yeah, so that's, again, another thing about kid versus adult. Like, carrying a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old on your back, no problem. Even though she wasn't a large woman, she was still an adult woman.
Yeah,
she's still going to be,
100 pounds.
100, 110, 120 at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's very different, especially since I think it's public knowledge that he has a bad back.
Yeah.
I also want to go back to something I noted from day 2 when they got a delivery, and the delivery was a bajillion pieces on how to build this like
little kid's dome.
Kid dome fort, and she just says, "You have until morning. Good luck." What is speed building toys part of an assessment?
Well, I think it was a matter of seeing how they relate to each other, because that was part of her thing is I want to see how you interact with each other. And let me tell you, if 2 of you are trying to assemble something with 1,000 pieces, that's going to show who you are as a couple. Are you getting cranky with one another? Is one person being dominant and, bossing around the other, or being impatient or disrespectful with their participation in the process? I actually think that was a really good test to see how they are as a couple.
Now,
because I can think if you and I had to put that together, I think we would do very poorly on a grade, because I think you would take over and I think it would create a big fight, and I think it would go poorly.
So here's the other thing. they're very specific in the instructions that you have to use all the parts, and if you don't use all the parts, it's going to have safety issues. When they're done, there's one blue pipe left over.
Right.
Now, my theory is that blue pipe is there intentionally. It doesn't go there. It's there to be at odds with the directions.
Yeah.
To play the what would you do?
Yeah, create a conflict.
And so what would you do if you've just spent the whole freaking night building this thing? You've got this one blue pipe and you don't know where the hell it goes, but you know you're supposed to use all the parts. What do you do?
I think I would find somewhere that it could go, that it might not be the right part. What our main character Mia did is she threw it in the ocean. And
That is not what I would have done.
yeah, because if for some reason you need it, or later it's like, okay, well, this is a test. Remember how that igloo dome had an extra blue pipe? You use it for this. So I would not have discarded it. Even if I wanted to hide it, I would have buried it or something, but I would not have thrown it in the ocean. I thought that was a huge mistake too.
I would have the next morning when Victoria came out say, listen, we have it built. We've checked, double checked, triple checked, quadruple checked. This thing is completely built properly. Somehow within this part structure, there was an extra blue pipe. And I know the instructions say you're supposed to use everything.
I wouldn't do that.
But we have no clue where this pipe goes.
Fail.
We have no clue where this pipe goes. No, I don't think it's a fail.
I wouldn't. I'd be scared. I think if this is your one chance to get a child, I wouldn't want to openly admit that there was a failure.
No, it wasn't a failure. We built it right. The failure is on the manufacturer who sent an extra pipe.
Well, the
even though it's not a
manufacturer was
failure, that's a part of the test. What do you do with that pipe?
I don't know if it's a failure of the manufacturer. I think it came from the government who is conducting the assessment. I think everything is part.
Well, yes,
of
but
that.
yes, my point is that blue. I don't think that blue pipe went anywhere. It's designed to be an extra piece to see what you do with that extra piece.
So your what would you do is that you'd be honest with Victoria and tell her what happened. My what would you do is I would either find a place that it could go and look like it should go, or I would bury it.
Well, it's a metal pipe. You just want to have a loose metal.
No, it's a PVC pipe.
It didn't look like PVC. It looked like metal. It looked like
No children's toys made out of metal.
No.
These days. They're all made
You
out of
remember those
plastic.
geodesic domes that people used to crawl on in like the 80s? It basically looked like it was that with panels.
Yeah, it was PVC
So those were
pipe.
made out of metal.
Yeah, nothing. No children's toys are made out of metal anymore.
Well,
They're all made out of
Well,
plastic.
in our reality, in this dystopian world, who the hell knows?
Agree to disagree.
So, anyway, when they're at the ocean, she almost dies, and at this
Victoria,
point,
yeah.
you could see like there's definitely she's gravitating towards him and away from Mia.
Yeah, Victoria has
And-
this almost like, is she flirting with him, trying to get inappropriately close, as in carry me on your back so I can kind of have inappropriate contact with you, where you're straddling me like you would or I'm straddling you like I.
Yeah, like when you start playing tigers.
Yeah. When she wanted to play and they were jumping around on the ground playing tigers, but then again she straddled him from behind. And you're like, okay, that's inappropriate.
Though jumping out of sync here a little. I mean, it's not really out of sync. It's just another. What would you do if you could have a full-on virtual pet?
You know, I agree with Victoria. She said that, well, first of all, they mandated in this new world that all the pets be killed, and that's why there weren't pets. And they just basically didn't want to support pets. And she actually murdered her pet because she didn't want it to go into the system and, be killed that way. She wanted to know what, that she had done it and she was with it. And so Aryan, the main character of our couple here, he's actually a scientist. So he creates virtual worlds and virtual things. And one of the things he developed was virtual pets, where you have pets, but they're not real. So they're not a drain on society, but you can still have interaction with them. But the point that Victoria made that she didn't have one is because you couldn't, I believe it was, you couldn't cuddle with them. And
Oh yeah, I couldn't. She wanted to be able to touch them.
yeah, and Arian, who had developed this, actually hadn't gotten the feel right of the fur on any of them, so it felt strange. So you didn't have the same
But he was
kind of
getting
interaction.
it seemed like he was getting closer.
Yeah, but it seemed as well that these virtual pets had been in existence for a while.
Okay, well, you've had a couple of pets in your life.
I have.
What if you had a dog that didn't have to eat or drink and didn't have to go use the bathroom? And by the way, they can't get sick either.
But yeah, it feels like maybe sandpaper, gravel, or sand or something.
Well, no, I mean, theoretically, by the time this happens, they've got it.
But they did in the film.
They've got it to the 97% test.
Okay, so we're going into the future of the future.
Well, I mean, like, it seemed like he got that monkey pretty right near the end.
So I would say I can see an environment without pets, without children, feeling very sterile. So I can understand how someone would accept having a virtual pet in their lives because it's still companionship.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think it would be a poor substitute to actual pets, but in that environment, I could possibly see getting one because you're just at that point, you're getting all the, a playful, happy animal.
Yeah.
Likely.
I mean, you are, and just
But
fast forwarding
doesn't have
to
to
the end, apparently he could make humans
Yeah,
as well, and actually ended up creating a child, and that child grew up. It basically was a child.
Yeah.
Like you could tell there were little things about it that you could tell it was virtual, but
And recreated his wife,
Yeah.
but
and acted everything just like a child. So, I mean, it seems like they could get it pretty real. I'd love to have a pet that I could just have all the good sides and then have to worry about vet bills and pet food and pissing and crapping in the house and stuff like that. Man, you make an apartment.
well, yeah, it takes away the responsibility. So at that point, you're definitely all in for sure.
Yeah, well, duh. Okay, we moved to day 5, and I remember the big thing about this one was that Mia got a call that said that her sister was in ICU, and she needed to go see her. And she's like, I have to go see my sister. And then Victoria's like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, that's cool. We can be done with the assessment. And then
As in, it's finished, it's incomplete.
yeah,
you
you're done. You
forfeit.
lose. Game over. But then she's able to convince her, listen, this is me showing what my commitment to family is. Like, this is, if you're going to knock me down because I'm committed to my family, I feel like you're going to assess me worse if I stay than if I go. So please let me go. And she's like, be back by 6 a.m. Okay, great. Spoiler alert, there was no sister issue. This was a ruse
To get Mia out of the house.
to get me out of the house so that Victoria could fuck Arian. Wow. That was one awkward scene.
Yeah.
Because, if we've ever wanted to see a situation where a woman pure on rapes a dude, that was it. She didn't need a knife. She didn't need a gun. She just needed her words.
Yeah, this is an excellent what would you do? And as a guy, I'd love to hear your perspective here. So prior to this, she had crawled into bed with them, which was uncomfortable and awkward because, she's actually a grown woman, not a child, but she did the thing that kids do. It was like, I'll sleep with you and I'm going to crawl in the middle. And it was uncomfortable. And Arian at that time did the right thing, turned his back, moved away. I'm like, okay, good move, Arian.
Yeah, he's not making a Victoria sandwich.
Yeah, so when Mia is gone and she's standing there at the end of the bed and Arian's was like, Victoria, did you have a bad dream? Go back to bed. And she crawls in bed with him and pretty much just says, all of this as at the discretion of the assessor. I have the final say. And
she is not at all acting like the toddler. She is full on acting like the highly manipulative assessor.
yeah, I want to get with you. And if you don't do this, you're going to make me mad. And I have all the power here. And I could,
She, as strongly as you could, implied if you want a kid, you're sticking it in.
Yeah.
But in the end,
And starts grabbing him.
she only implied it. Heavily, like any logical person would read between the lines and say that's what she's saying, only she didn't actually say it.
Yeah, so
Which becomes important later.
yeah, so she starts grabbing his private parts, and he's like, no, we shouldn't do this. But she keeps going, and he keeps laying there, and then sure enough, we have a whole big sex scene, and you go from there.
Okay, so if I'm him and I'm in this situation, this is obviously awkward and uncomfortable. And later on, Victoria makes the comment that kids lie. You're right. Kids lie. I've never had a 3-year-old try to crawl in bed with me and lie to me to make me fuck them. That's not going to happen with a child. So the kids lie argument is invalid. Yes, they do lie, but it doesn't involve fornication.
Well, let's talk about that moment in particular, though. I mean, instead of going future casting here and then looking back, let's stay in that moment. What would you do if you were in?
I'm actually probably pretty close to exactly what he did, except I'm going to make her say that I have to do this or else you're getting failed. Like, she needs to blatantly say, unquestionably, one of the terms and conditions of you continuing in this assessment is that you fuck my brains out.
Okay, so here is my perspective. And guys, if you're listening, listen to me. This is the same situation as the film Indecent Proposal. Everything seems fine, that you're doing it for the greater good. You're doing it to, strengthen your marriage or to grow as a couple. And you do something where you're unfaithful because you're doing it for her. You're doing it for him. You're doing it for your marriage, for your couple, for your future. Infidelity never works out that way. Being unfaithful is being unfaithful. It doesn't matter if your intention is for the betterment of both of you. You cannot get past infidelity. And women who do are either the most saintly women there are, or they're women who lie to themselves and saying it's okay. That is just an ultimate betrayal. And that is what this reminded me of.
Couldn't disagree more. So take a woman who, in today's society, wants to get pregnant, can't get pregnant, has an issue.
Okay.
Assuming they have some amount of means, if they go to them and say, you can get pregnant by handing over $1 million, they're writing that check at a heartbeat because that's what they want. That's like a whole life type goal. Like, this is like the thing that they want. And
I think he wanted it more than she did, though.
And what?
I think he wanted it more than she did, though.
No, I feel like they both really did. 100 times more so in this society where, like, most couples don't even have the option to get to this point. And in his mind, it's not, I'm doing this for you. It's, if I don't do this, I am now the reason that we don't get to have a child. And that would be too much for me.
So this is on the tail end of her finding out, I believe the day before, or maybe 2 days before, that he didn't tell her about having started this process with his ex.
Yeah.
So she was upset that he didn't tell her that, but yet now he's going to cheat on her and not tell her that? That's way bigger.
Oh, no. For sure, when this process is done, if it doesn't come out, like on day 8, when the assessor's gone, if I'm him, I'm turning to her and say, listen, I'm putting all the cards out on the table right now. Bitch raped me. She said, if you want a kid, we got to get down. And I'm like, I'm not going to be the reason that we don't have a kid. So it didn't mean shit. I didn't want to be there. I wanted nothing to do with it, but I also didn't want to lose my kid.
Okay, so here's my take on that. When a woman is raped, and I can't believe this is where we're going with this conversation here. When a woman is raped, it's a power thing. And
this was a power thing for sure.
No, hang on. But that also manifests itself frequently in physical power, where a guy holds a woman down, where, he holds her mouth. rape is a very violent thing. For her, she was touching him and inappropriately and trying to pleasure him. But at any point, he could have rolled away or threw her off. He did not have to endure that. He didn't. He chose to stay where he was. And
because the person judging you, the person who gets to make the ultimate final decision, is coming in and stroking your cock. Like, listen, okay, I'm sorry. So it's not very common in this world that somebody will be faced with a situation like this where have sex or this horrible, horrible thing happens to you. For me, the infidelity that comes with having sex with somebody else has to have some form of an emotional component to it. Like, I like this person, or I found them attractive, or I just wanted to get laid, or something out there where they wanted to be a willing participant in the situation. Otherwise, it is just a physical act, and it really means nothing. Now, how many people are going to be faced with this in their life? I doubt anyone listening to this. I'd say 1 in a million, but I don't even think it's that many who are going to be faced with a situation like that where it's completely against their will.
his will.
But even still, in a way, okay, a guy's there and he has a knife to your throat and he wants to fuck you. He's raping you. You could struggle and move and go like crazy, and he slices your throat and you die. That's an option. But no, it doesn't mean anything.
Okay, let's be super clear. I am not saying that a woman who is being raped allowed herself to be raped if she doesn't fight back. That is not what I'm saying. But you do whatever you do as a woman to survive that encounter. You do whatever you need to do. What I'm saying is he was a fit, youngish guy who could have easily thrown this woman off. He was not physically prevented from getting out of that situation.
And he could have blown up the entire assessment.
Yeah, he could. And let me revisit what I said about cheating in women, because that sounded a little judgy. We're all individuals. We all make the decisions that are right for us. Some women stay with husbands or boyfriends that cheat. And I guess my attitude towards that kind of went to where I've been in the past. But the reality is relationships are complicated. And I would say if it were me and someone cheated on me, I'm personally, for me, I'm done. But I know there's a lot of women who choose to stay with whoever cheated on them. And I'm sure many of them have good reasons to. Maybe they're mothers and they have children to feed and they don't know how else to keep it together.
He didn't cheat. And I'm gonna explain why he did not cheat.
Well, he didn't initiate it. I understand he didn't initiate it.
Okay, I don't want to say I don't want to say a willingness component, because he obviously was willing to go along with it, but you need some component of desire on your part. Anything.
I don't think so. I disagree.
If you don't desire it and it happens,
you're talking really loud.
Yes, of course I am.
Yes, okay. I don't know how it's going to affect our modulation here.
Oh, well,
so
I have good software.
I'm not saying that he cheated. I'm saying he was unfaithful, and I use that word intentionally because at that point he chose to. I'm going to have a sexual encounter with this person who is not my wife. I didn't say he cheated. I didn't say he initiated it, but he didn't stop it. And if I got a child because my husband was unfaithful, that could potentially, to me, taint that like, I got this because every time I look at this child, I remember I got this child because you were with somebody else. And again, like Indecent Proposal, Demi Moore, did not sleep with Robert Redford because she was out to get her some. But it was because it was for them.
There was a desirability component to that.
But that wasn't initially. It was after that.
No, but
time.
sure it was. You did.
Well, I mean, it's Robert Redford. So, I mean, obviously, that's the scales are a little skewed there. But, I mean, the relationship initially was, I'm going to do this for us. And he says, yes, do this for us. Woody Harrelson, her husband, said, do this for us. And it was for them, much like the situation where he's doing this for them so they can have a baby.
But this is a different situation because she's not there. She's been sent away.
Yes.
To check on her sister. He is having to make a decision for the couple by himself on the fly. I think losing your child because you weren't willing to go along with it is a worse outcome than my dick slipped in someone for 2 minutes. And it didn't mean a damn thing. It was literally, purely physical. One human being doing what what we're programmed in general to do. But I wanted nothing to do with being there. I just did it because I felt the other outcome was worse.
Yeah, we're talking about what you would what would you do? I'm telling you what I would do. You're telling me what you would do. And obviously, any of our listeners might have any variety of approaches and opinions that they would have. So I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer here when we're talking about this situation, when we're talking about infidelity in general or cheating or whatever word is appropriate. People are going to make decisions that are best for them in their relationships. And that isn't always a black and white or universal decision.
But I also want to make it clear that if I'm getting down with her, she is vocalizing straight up, if you don't do this, you're out. Or if you do this, you're in.
Yeah, you're more analytic than
one
most
of
people.
those two needs to be said. Like, one's a guarantee that you get it, and the other one's a guarantee that you don't.
Yeah.
No vagaries.
Yeah.
So I ask, okay, well, I guess that's the question. If you're Aryan, is that where you tap out?
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously Mia doesn't have an option there because she's not there.
Yeah, and that's not a situation that they would have come to agreement of in the previously, because who would have thought that would happen?
Yeah, I'm just going to say no. If I'm him, I'm not tapping out. But I'm making it goddamn good and clear that this is a requirement.
Yeah, I would. And obviously, I'm putting myself in the decision-making position of someone who is a different sex than me. So I'm thinking as a woman, I don't, even though it was for the common good and for our common cause, infidelity is hard on a relationship.
I will argue a million times that wasn't infidelity.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Fidelity requires desirability, and there was no desirability.
Okay, well, you're making up a definition, but oh yes, go to the internet. I can see you grabbing your keyboard, but I understand what you're saying. That there was no premeditation. That there was no I'm doing this because I want to. I understand that, but I also know, regardless if you had a good reason or not, being unfaithful is still something that can taint a relationship. So obviously I'm putting myself in a guy's mind, but I'm saying if I was him, I wouldn't, because I would be concerned about the long-term impact on our relationship, my relationship with my wife, Mia. Okay, I see you have some definitions over there. Let's see what you got.
So, well, first of all, infidelity, the action or state of being unfaithful to a spouse or sexual partner.
Okay.
So we have to go to unfaithful. First one, not faithful. Engaging in sexual relations with a person other than one's regular partner in a contravention of a previous promise or understanding.
I don't know what that means. As we click over to contravention.
An action that violates a law, treaty, or other ruling.
Yeah, see, none of those things say anything about desire. You're putting your own definition on that. That just isn't universal definition.
Disloyal, treacherous, or insincere.
Yeah, none of that has to do with desire. So that's your own take on it, and you're going to make decisions with your own interpretation of stuff like anybody else would.
This also goes to me thinking that we as a society put way too much meaning behind sex.
Spoken like a guy.
Well, no, it's not like spoken like a guy. I know lots of guys that put a lot of meaning in sex, and I know a lot of women who don't. It's not a spoken like a guy. It's spoken like a guy who says, listen, it's like loving someone and having sex with them, yes, many times do go hand in hand, but do not necessarily have to.
Yeah, of course. I'll agree with you.
And
That's easy.
so I think sometimes you have to break some rules because there's a bigger thing at play. Now, again, like I said, how many people are going to be faced with this type of a situation in their lifetime?
Not many.
More than one, fewer than 1 in a million. Anyway, day 6.
And it's also day 6 of this particular episode.
Yes. Mia came home and she found them laying in bed together. Now, they weren't touching each other.
And they were dressed.
They were dressed. She jumps in between, but she could tell this was kind of weird. Why is this? So she goes out for a swim and tells him, hey, watch Victoria.
No, actually, she doesn't.
Could you keep an eye on Victoria? I'm going for a swim.
No, he says, I want to talk to you. And she goes, I need to clear my head first. I'm going for a swim. Let's talk after.
She 1,000,000% told him, could you keep an eye on Victoria?
I don't remember that.
I guarantee it. So
Maybe.
this is one of those situations, like, remember the Unbreakable Boy?
Yeah.
Would you keep an eye on him? And he's working, so he doesn't, and the boy breaks?
I don't remember her saying that.
But
which would
she did.
Which would actually be illogical because he's in this alter universe weird little lab that they have to do some sort of weird entrance to that makes it seem like it's virtual.
In other words, put your kid above your work.
And he's there. So obviously he's not in a position to watch Victoria. He's in a completely different room, and we don't even know where Victoria is at that point.
Yeah.
I don't think she said that.
But she did. I mean, factually,
Well,
it's a fact that she said that.
I don't know it's a fact.
Okay, you might not realize it, but I guarantee you it is a fact.
And what do you give me if you're incorrect?
Literally anything in this world you want.
Okay. You heard it here, folks.
Because I remember him saying that, and when he didn't get up, I thought, that's the fucking typical dad who's like, I'm just going to be engrossed in my work and hope that my kid's okay.
Okay. We'll see.
So, yeah, it was do you put your kid above your work? And the answer in this case was no. So Victoria decided that she was going to have a little fun with that. If she's going to go for a swim and he's going to stay there, I'm going to cause chaos.
Yeah, she was mentally unstable. I think she went far and above beyond this assessor role of just creating conflict and acting like a child and seeing how they react. She was downright destructive and evil.
And again, this is where I put the difference between being a child and being an adult. She actually goes to the greenhouse, is able to give a command to
Basically,
the
their version
Alexa
of
or whatever
Alexa.
the thing is that.
Yeah, our Alexa went on when we
It's
said
not my
that.
Alexa. Mute.
Okay,
I'm just unplugged. There we go. And so, because she was set up as an adult in the household, you wouldn't set up a kid as an adult.
Well, but she demanded it when she first came on day one. I need to have all access
Of
to
course.
everything.
So she had access where a kid would not.
Right.
So that would be a secure thing. And then she goes in, and because of her height, is able to destroy things that kids might not be able to get to.
Yeah, that greenhouse was Mia's lab. So she had all kinds of equipment there, and she also had a plant that looked kind of like an orchid that belonged to her mom, and her mom was sent to the old world when she was a kid. So
She also had the physical strength necessary to pull large wires out of the top of tanks, and like she had things that a child's simply not going to have.
yeah, and that was extreme, like causing mass destruction of that magnitude, destroying Mia's work, her lab, this structure that in this environment probably wasn't easy or cheap to build, and burning it to the ground. Victoria took that test and pushed it to such a degree of intensity where it was beyond inappropriate.
And not only that, she knew that he had a massive fear of fire.
Yeah, he
because
had
of
experienced
because
fire
of something
in the past.
from earlier. And then she stayed in the greenhouse. Like this is the second time that I feel like she literally put her own life on the line to see whether or not they would save her.
Yeah, because as the greenhouse is on fire, she just pretty much just lays down, and you can see that she's choking on the smoke and just lays down there and be like, okay, let's see who comes to get me. And at that point, he's in the house, Mia's in the ocean, nobody's around. So that's a really risky proposition.
Yeah.
So what would I do? If I was Victoria, I wouldn't be a psychopath and cause that kind of destruction and risk my own life in the process.
Like, at that point, I have to ask myself, do I tap out now? Because if I tap out, the bitch that just destroyed all of my work can die.
Yeah, I was thinking that might happen when Mia actually found her, be like, what the hell? I told her how important this was to me, how special it was to me, and she burned it to the ground. But instead what Mia did is she rose to the occasion. She acted like a mom. She threw something hard through the glass to finally get in as Ariane is standing there paralyzed, not able to move toward the fire, and grabs Victoria, gets her out, and saves her.
I thought she was going to go back for the orchid.
Yeah, which was dust at that point.
At that point, I think it was beyond the ability to do so. But so she saves them, and this is, I mean, obviously she is.
Which she?
Mia is devastated. Her entire life, just went up like needlessly.
Yeah.
Even though it might be, it might be within the jurisdiction of what they can do, but like that's just some twisted bullshit.
Yeah.
That you would do that to her.
Yeah. If you want a baby, you're going to be willing to have this your other life purpose completely demolished and destroyed.
So she's done like literally the ultimate mother thing.
Mia, yeah, and saving
like
Victoria.
the ultimate mother thing.
Yeah.
Day 7 comes around, and they're told they fail.
Womp womp.
What do you do?
I think I grab Victoria and throw her in the ocean.
I honestly, I'd like to think that I can be level-headed. I would murder Victoria.
Well, and
I would murder her painfully.
And that's where Ariane comes clean in being like, but I did everything you said. And Mia is, what are you talking about? What's going on? And that's where the infidelity comes out.
Mia's like, you fucked her.
Yeah.
And then he made it very clear, no. She fucked me. Big difference. So, no, I'm grabbing something. I'm knocking Victoria out, and I'm going full Novocaine on her.
If you haven't listened to our Novocaine episode, go back a couple.
I'm pulling out fingernails. I'm poking out eyeballs. I am just incensed to the point that if that very last thing, like if at any point you fail, you're told you're notified immediately. So they hadn't been notified. They didn't fail. The last thing they did was the most heroic thing possible of saving it, despite
saving her, yeah,
and not even necessarily being angry with her over destroying the lab. Like maybe having a talk with her about it, but not being. I mean, it was the most parental thing I could imagine happening.
Yeah.
And then they're told they fail?
Yeah.
No, that bitch dies painfully.
Yeah, after creating that much turmoil, that much chaos, and lasting destruction, because that greenhouse was Mia's work. That's where she went every day. She was growing hundreds of species of plants in a world that was increasingly barren of those kinds of things. So her mission of propagating plants and keeping these species alive went beyond her. It was actually a societal contribution.
Yeah. So after they fail, they let her go. I don't know why they didn't murder her. But
what would you do? Murder Victoria?
Oh yeah, murder. And I'd like to say it. That's not true, but it is. I because that's such an insane thing.
Be like, okay, you don't have anything. You have this rift in your marriage. You've lost your life's work. You've lost all of this. I'm gonna go now. You don't get what you want.
I'm doing society a favor by murdering that person.
Yeah.
But so she tracks her down. Her real name's actually Grace.
Mia tracks down Victoria. Yeah, to say why did we
Why?
fail?
I want to. If you're gonna fail me, instead of me murdering you,
She didn't say that.
you tell me why you did it. I want to know why did you. And that's when we learn that like nobody has passed in 6 years. It's a ruse. It's because the government knows you can't be bringing more people into the population, but you have to give people the hope that it could happen.
Yeah.
But dear God, if you're going to do that, why put them through that? I mean, listen, you could put them through a little torture. Some of the things they did, like watching them have sex, maybe destroying the house by flinging food and emptying.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. When you start
Destroying
fucking
someone's
people's
life work.
husbands and blowing up people's greenhouses, we've gone a little far.
Yeah. Victoria was either mentally unstable or severely damaged or.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, my guess is to take a job like that, you have to be the definition of emotionally numb.
Well, and what we find out
Like
later
purely
in the film
sociopathic.
is that most assessors do burn out. They quit after a couple of weeks because it is so difficult.
Oh, yeah.
They either
If you have any conscience, like you can't do that job.
knowing that it's all for naught, that you're messing with people, giving them hope, knowing that there's no payout, that there's no winning, that there's no happy ending. Yeah.
It's a complete freaking broken, disgusting system that the government's allowing it too.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, that-
what would you do if I had an opportunity to become an assessor? Even if it paid really well, I could not mess with people like that. That was just cruel.
Oh, funny, because I actually have here written on my notes, I want a job as an assessor. I mean, listen, you get paid to go into other people's lives and cause chaos. Now, am I causing as much chaos as Victoria is? No. I'm probably stopping around day 4. Like with that level of chaos. But I don't know. You always say I'm pure chaos. Which you're not wrong. Yeah, I don't want to blow up anyone's greenhouse or fuck anyone's wife/husband or whatever. But I that might be fun to screw with people a little bit. But it's true. But we find out at the end that it's virtually impossible to be truly emotionally numb because Mia brought it out in Grace when they sat there and discussed, like, why are you doing this? And it turns out Grace is going to be getting a child because she lost a child.
Well, she's doing it because they told her she could be given a child.
Yes, and that's how. And see,
And she makes up the name so they can kind of think of this as a role.
Yeah.
Like I'm the role of Victoria and I'm the assessor. And
but see, vis-a-vis, like she's willing to do all of this in the hope that she gets a child later.
yeah.
That's why, going back to day 5, if I'm him, like if she's willing to do that, I'm willing to get ridden for 2 minutes and hate every minute of it.
Well, also keep in mind that she doesn't just want a child and to be a mom. She was a mom and her daughter died when her daughter was 8. So she knows what it's like to be a mom and to lose a child. So that's a whole other level of want there. If not just I want to be a mom and I want to have a kid. It's I've known being a mom and I've lost a kid and I have a hole in my heart and I want to fill it.
But we clearly see that she's not emotionally numb because she goes in for her next assignment and 5 minutes in the door, seemingly, she jumps out the window and kills herself.
Yeah, she throws herself off the
And
balcony.
like that's the culmination of all of the guilt of probably everything that she's done.
Yeah.
That like you could press it down into a powder keg as much as you like, but eventually that powder keg's going to explode. And that's where it exploded for her.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years of knowing that no one's received a child and that you're contributing to that and giving these people hope and testing them like this for nothing.
Like you're not a good person. If you take that job and cause that level of chaos, knowing the outcomes, you just have to realize I'm the bad guy.
Well, and that's why I said I would never be an assessor, and you said, "Oh, I'll be an assessor. That'll be fun."
Oh no, I would. Assuming that
So you're not a good person.
no, assuming that couples could have a chance to win,
Which they don't.
and assuming that I'm not going to go to day 5 and 6 levels of chaos, I would be an assessor. I would have my lines.
Well,
I mean, they'd be pushed out there pretty far, but not nearly as far as Victoria's.
okay. So under ideal circumstances, you would be an assessor.
Well, not ideal, but
There's
not
actually
not purely sane.
There's a child to be given at the end
yes.
if they do well.
Like, I'm truly assessing them to truly figure out who are the best parents. Like, not I'm here to play the role of government person to give the society hope while wrecking individual lives.
Yeah. This obviously is our longest episode ever. There were just so many juicy what would you do's in here. Every couple of minutes something happened and you're like, oh, wow, okay, that's a decision, that's a conflict. Well, what would you do?
And sadly, I think we actually probably still miss things.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
absolutely, unless we had an outline or notes from the film.
Like if I
we're
had
going to miss
if
things.
I'd had an easy way to rewatch this movie before doing this episode, I would have. I might have been able to streamline a little bit better. But yeah, no, this for me, this was a great movie. I loved it. It gives you a lot to think about, and I'm hoping that people have seen it before they listen to this episode, because if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it,
Don't let
then
us
we
spoil
have
it.
just wrecked it for you. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to put an extra thing at the beginning. Like there's always the
Spoilers.
the following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned. And I'm probably going to be like, no, seriously, there are some crazy spoilers here, and this is a movie you want to watch. Stop this episode if you haven't. That's almost for sure going to be what goes to the front.
Yeah, it was a very good film and certainly thought-provoking. And
I mean, I know this was released at some film festivals in like November 2024, and the Victoria character actually was nominated for like best lead performance. So, and I thought she was very good. I mean, she was extremely creepy, but she was very good as an actor. Like that's a crazy role
it is.
to have to put together.
So one last what would you do here before we wrap up is the film ends with Mia leaving Aryan and going to the old world, where life is hard, where people age, where people die and get diseases, and there are storms and windstorms and the ground is depleted and there's not enough food. And she leaves. And she returns to the old world. And as you mentioned earlier, Aryan creates a virtual child and he creates a virtual Mia.
Now, here's what we
And-
don't know. Did
What
she
came first?
Well, no, did she leave or was she exiled? Because the assessor
Oh, that's interesting.
the assessor kills herself. Mia had just had contact with her.
Yeah, and what she wasn't supposed to do. And,
Yeah, not supposed to.
Grace
So-
/ Victoria said repeatedly, "You're not supposed to be here. This is against."
I
the
think it's
law."
entirely possible she got exiled.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't considered that, but yeah,
I mean,
it's
it could be either way. I'd love to hear from the director, like whether or not it was an exile situation or she left because she couldn't deal with it anymore with him. I'd really like to think it was exile.
or not even just with him, with a society that will mess with its citizens in going through this farce of an assessment, thinking that you can have a child, knowing that no, there's no kids, you're not going to get one, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, both worlds are incredibly screwed up, just incredibly screwed up in very different ways.
So that's interesting you brought that up. I'll definitely have to think about that. And sometimes directors do throw things out there that are completely open to interpretation. But what would you do in either of those circumstances if Aryan was by himself and had the capability to create a virtual child and a virtual wife? Would you do that? Or if you were either exiled or chose to go to the old world where they initially put on gas masks and she takes it off and there is just a severe wind and sandstorm because that's just how hard life is. What would you do in any of those situations?
I mean, okay, so it seemed to me, based on some things I saw early in the movie when they're discussing various aspects of the dome, radiation levels are safe, etc. That was her killing herself, I believe. Like everyone's wearing the PPE for a reason. She's taking it off and breathing it all in. I think if they
And that's more than PPE. That's like gas masks.
Yeah,
and-
you keep that camera on her for 10 minutes, and she's probably writhing on the ground, and that's it. She's just, I'm done. My life is completely wrecked and ruined. I have nothing left. I'm done.
That's interesting because now I'm realizing how much there is open to interpretation because I didn't see her taking that mask off as an attempt to off herself. I saw it as a kind of almost a sigh of relief of this is how the world really is. This
but if
is
there's
a step
that much
into reality and not the weird life that.
But there's that much radiation in the air that they have to monitor it. You got to think that in an unsafe environment, that's because there's too much radiation and it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
So, well, this was a hell of an episode.
Yeah, thank you for staying with us for our longest episode ever, which was about the same amount of time that we could do 4 episodes.
Yeah, no, this actually was about a quad episode. But you know what? Every once in a while, a movie comes out and I think it deserves, maybe not usually this length, but it deserves a little extra time. So I'm happy to give it.
And hopefully you all saw this film before you listened to this episode because it really was something extremely unique and worth seeing. And I would hate to think we spoiled it for you. But if you listen despite the warnings...
Still go see it.
Yeah.
Like, still go see it. It's. I mean, our words are only going to do it so much justice.
Yeah, it was good.
I mean, you'll know everything that happened now, but you'll still go see it. So, bye.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.